I've mentioned previously that JavaScript is increasingly used as a general purpose programming language, but its primary use is still in web pages. So we're going to get started by writing hello world in a web browser using JavaScript. So we'll start off by making a directory for this tutorial. I suggest using a repos directory. I have a directory for anything that has a Git repository associated with it is in my repos directory, and then let's call it js_tutorial, and this -p, in case it's not familiar, just creates intermediate directories as necessary. So if you don't have a repos directory, it'll create it, but I do have one. cd into it, and let's start off with index.html. This is our index file. And now that we have a directory that isn't empty, because we have this index file, we can initialize a Git repository. You can't actually initialize an empty directory as a Git repo, but you can now that we have this, even this empty index file is enough. So git init, git add -a. You can also do git add dot for the current directory. Git commit with the message initialize repository. If these steps don't look familiar, then I suggest taking a look at Learn Enough Git to be Dangerous, at least through a few chapters, just to make sure that you've got the basics of Git going, because we will be relying on Git knowledge, not only for tracking changes in the project, but also for deploying, as we'll see in just a moment. But let's get started now with our HTML. I'm going to use Atom in this tutorial as the text editor. So here it is. And let's start off with a skeleton. So Atom lets you use a tab trigger there, HTML tab. And I don't need this part here, but I do want the other things. The title of our page will be Learn Enough JavaScript. By the way, the misspelling JavaScript with a lowercase s is really common, to the point where it's almost acceptable. But it is technically wrong, so I'm going to stick with the capital S. And in the body, let's say this is a hello world page. So hello world, and then so this page includes an alert written in JavaScript. It doesn't actually yet, but let's take a look at it just to make sure things are working. I like to make sure things are working pretty much at every step of the way. So let's open this thing. This is the sort of thing that is system dependent. You might have to double click on the index file, but in macOS I can just type open index.html. And there we are. Hello world. And you can see this is a little lie. We're saying this page includes an alert, but it in fact does not. So let's add one. This will be our first JavaScript. We'll learn later on in this tutorial how to put JavaScript into its own file and then include it into a web page. But in fact, we can include raw JavaScript in the head area here using the script tag. By the way, you might also have noticed that this little meta tag here is in the opposite order in this generated HTML tab trigger than it is in the book. This is the sort of thing that really doesn't matter. So it's important to get to the point where you can see these little discrepancies as part of technical sophistication and just recognize that it doesn't really matter. Sometimes things are order dependent, but this one is not. But I'll change it up there just to sync them up before adding in the script. So here we've got script type equals text JavaScript. This is kind of an older style that's actually not required anymore. So I'm just going to get rid of that and say inside the script tags, I'm going to put an alert. So this is a call to a JavaScript function. We'll learn a lot more about functions throughout the rest of this tutorial. But for now, we can just look at its effect. So we use the name of the command, alert, and then in parentheses, we're going to put the thing that we want to have appear in the alert. And we'll put it in double quotes. This is a string. We'll be learning more about strings in the next chapter. Hello world. And then we'll end with a semicolon. You can actually get away with leaving off these semicolons for the most part, but they're a good practice. There are some situations where it matters, and I'm actually not even really sure exactly when. But for the sake of consistency in this tutorial, we'll always end every JavaScript statement with a semicolon, like that. So let's save that and refresh the page, see what happens. Look at that. Hello world. So this is being generated dynamically by JavaScript. So we just refresh this page and boom, we've got an alert that appeared as the result of this script we just added. Believe it or not, we're now ready to deploy this. If you followed Learn Enough Git to be dangerous, Learn Enough HTML to be dangerous, or Learn Enough CSS and Layout to be dangerous, you'll be familiar with GitHub Pages. So by putting this project under version control with Git, we've actually laid the foundation for deploying it to the live web. You can look at the status. You can see we've made some changes to index.html. Let's commit them with a message. Add a JavaScript hello world. And now we need to set up a remote repo. So here we are at GitHub. I'm going to call this JS tutorial video because I already have a repo called JS tutorial. I suggest using this, but you can see that mine is already taken because I created one as the result of writing the tutorial. So now that we're doing the videos, I'll do this, but I suggest that you just do JS tutorial. So you can just put whatever you want in there. Okay, so here we go. Let's create the repository. And I'm just going to copy this because I've already got a repo. And then we can set up GitHub Pages by going to the settings. This. Let's see, where is it? Settings. And then GitHub Pages. Here it is. You can say, serve it off the master branch, save, and there we go. So let's take a look. The page is at username.github.io / the name of the repo. So let's do that. And there we go. Hello world. Now you can see actually the HTML hasn't loaded yet, so the alert came in first. And then if I close this, the web page should appear. There it is. And if I refresh it, we'll get the same behavior we got locally. There it is. Look at that. So this is a live web page. This is a real live JavaScript web application. A very simple one, but this is a huge step forward. This is the sort of thing that used to be extremely hard to do, but now deploying a live website is the kind of thing you can do in just a couple minutes.